three guys get re-signed lately, man. Past 2 to 3 days, actually, these all have taken place in terms of. Let me get his name right. Are you ready for this? I've been practicing. JC Hassenaeur.
Bro.
Yeah.
I think for me, his name's always going to be JD here on out. Do you remember what happened?
No. What happened, man?
So the Washington game this year, the announcers were botching everyone's name left and right. Yeah. They did it with Ray McLeod. I forget what they called Ray McLeod. Was it Ray McDonald?
I definitely remember that. Yes.
And then they topped it off with JD Hassenaeur.
Yes. That was definitely the case, man. So, JC Hassenaeur re-signed on a 1-year deal. We also signed Marcus Allen to a 1-year deal. And of today, Ray McLeod back on a 1-year deal. So I guess we'll start with JC and his signing. Knee-jerk reaction, I like it. I think we briefly talked about him when we were both comparing him to BJ Finney, a guy that we think could definitely come back, and we could see him fitting very well with this offense because what he brings from just a versatility and familiarity standpoint. With JC, I look at him in a very similar standpoint, from a very similar standpoint in terms of positional flexibility. Has played guard, has played center. Obviously, he's had some starts due to the injuries that were taking place last year, so he showed that as well. And I guess for me, if I'm trying to prioritize where we need to go, whether it's through draft and free agency, and we're talking running back, we're talking offensive line in terms of left tackle as more of a priority, I think, JC, him coming back, that does give you a little bit more peace of mind, in terms of at least having a bridge gap for that center position, knowing that Marquise Pouncey has officially retired.
No, for sure. I agree. He started how many games for us last year? Was it 1 or 2?
Man, I think it was 2, but he played in, I should pull this up real quick because I want to say he played in multiple games though.
It was never, with him at least, from my perspective, it's not something where we've talked about this how many times. I'm not analyzing the offensive line. Usually view the offensive line as a group, not any individual player. With him being in, I never really noticed a drastic drop-off in terms of we had a bad offensive line. It was not like whenever he was in, it was way worse and like, oh my goodness, this is like completely unplayable now. So, yeah, maybe he makes a little bit of improvement. He's young. He's in the system already, so it works for me. And it's on a really cheap contract too.
No, absolutely. And I just pulled it up. He played in 15 games last year. He had 4 starts though. Played a total of 28% of the snaps throughout the season though offensively. So you can definitely see that he did get some valuable experience, some valuable time and things like that. But based on, some of the cap limitations, and granted now that the salary cap is officially set, the Steelers are in the positive now. Not by much, but they are in the positive, which is a huge thing going forward. Right now, we're able to see if they can make some other moves, whether it's through restructures or releases that will free up more cap space so they can decide if they want to potentially splurge a little bit, right? On a free agent. We saw them do that last year with Eric Ebron. Maybe they go that route, but either way, the JC signing gives them a lot more flexibility now going forward. So I definitely think that this is a good move by them.
Do you view him as a potential 3 or 4 year starter, someone that you don't have to say is the main key on the offensive line, but just someone that could be a starter?
Right. I'm not looking at him as a long-term answer. I think of him right now as a fringe guy, right? Role player, fringe starter. But because of the limited sample size, it's hard to say that he can be a legitimate starter, right? But that's the beauty of this season for JC. If you're JC, you have to tell yourself this. As it stands today, I am the starter at center because there is nobody else that can play center right now, right? But 2 things are going to happen. They're either going to spend a little bit of money and get somebody through free agency, and you'll compete with them, and you'll know going in based on how much his contract is, if it's an open competition or if that guy is the starter. And then if they don't bring in a guy through free agency, come draft time, if the first 3 rounds they don't take a center, well then your mindset should be, I'm the starter. nobody in rounds 4 through 7 should be able to come in here and beat me out. I've already had a year under my belt. If you're JC, that has to be your mentality, because nobody's going to believe in him as a 16-game starter just yet because the sample size is too small. But he has to have that belief in himself, and he has to make sure that he's preparing right now for this opportunity, because once it happens, you know how the audition goes. If he comes out there and they didn't, make any other moves along that center position and he is underwhelming, they will be quick to address it. Even if it has to happen during the season, there will be a lot, it won't be, they won't have as much patience for him at that stage. So to me, like I said, I like the move right now, but it's more so because of the financial ramifications and everything else surrounding it, and less about just that comfort that he can be the guy going forward for these next couple of years.
If they don't address the center position in the first 3 rounds or through free agency, do you think that's more or less them just trying to address everything else as opposed to comfort with JC?
That's a good question. And I think, honestly, if they do address everything else but center, it's solely because of their comfort in JC.
Whoa.
So
that'll be interesting then. Like, we could find out.
Absolutely, yes.
It goes back to your point about if they don't bring in someone in through free agency or the first 3 rounds of the draft. But I guess that could be that sign then. We're assuming they address the center position, right. But if they don't.
Mm-hmm. And my thing is this. I said you literally have two guys that are directly in that same position right now. JC at the center position and Alex Highsmith at outside linebacker. We're going to know how the team views both of those guys based on the moves they make in free agency and in the draft. If this team, pays somebody, a substantial amount, nothing crazy, but a $5 or $7 million a year deal for an outside linebacker, they don't view Alex Highsmith as a starter next year. If they draft an outside linebacker in rounds 1 or 2, they're letting you know, hey, they probably aren't as convinced or as high on him as we think they are. I think the exact same thing goes for JC now. Now that he's under contract, you're going to know what they view him as. If they view him as a depth signing, expect them to be a little bit more aggressive in free agency start next Wednesday, right? Or expect them to draft somebody in one of those first 3 rounds that can play center. But if they don't do that, then I definitely think that they are feeling very confident in him. Now, hearing Coach Tomlin speak on JC, he did say that in the opportunities that JC had, he came in and he performed well. He didn't do anything that was a detriment to the team or would cost the team. And you said it yourself, right? We never really felt that there was this big, massive drop-off where we went from average to terrible once JC was in the lineup. We never felt that. Now, we felt as a whole the group wasn't up to standard, but we have already highlighted how guys like Kevin Dotson, him individually played well, right? We've said that you don't have to have all 5 guys be playing bad for the O-line to be bad. It's, kind of one fell, all fell mentality, though, when it pertains to the offensive line. But I think JC can definitely, come in and make it a little bit interesting.
Yeah, because the reason I think that is if they do address everything else except center, could it be, though, too, the money's just out?
No, that's very realistic. That could definitely happen.
And they do have some form of comfort with JC. Not extreme comfort, but it's just like,
right.
We're prioritizing everything else. Mm-hmm. We're going to be good with you going forward, or at least for this season.
Right. Well, that could definitely happen. The only reason I think we will in terms of the money and the confidence in him, the reason I think is very simple. You make that a priority if you don't believe that guy can get the job done. Because outside of left tackle, the next most important position on the offensive line is the center. Touch the ball every time. And we've seen you can have a bad, your first step can be bad at guard. It's not a turnover, right? You can have a late, get off at left tackle. It's not a turnover, right? When that snap is bad, we've seen what that looks like. If that snap rolls on the ground, if that snap goes over a head, that has equal points in back-to-back seasons for us now. I don't think that if they aren't 100% confident that JC can get the job done, that they would allow themselves financially to be put in a situation where they can't fix that.
Gotcha.
I just don't think that they would do that based on the moves that they've made, because we said quarterback was important, right? But they made enough moves. Obviously, Ben was a part of, just being more open to it, but they made the moves necessary to make sure that they took care of that position, right? Because we know how important, how significant it is. I think with center, they're going to look at it very similar to that. And like I said, if they're confident with JC, then yeah, we won't have to worry about them spending money like that. But if they aren't, I don't see a scenario where they allow Ben to go out there and play behind a guy like that they aren't confident with, because we know, as we've already highlighted, the importance of protecting Ben and how much that can mean to this offense in terms of opening it up so he can stretch the field a little bit more.
Sure. Yeah, all in all, man. I think we both agree. Solid signing.
Yep.
Not too much to complain about.
Absolutely. Now, the next guy we had to talk about, Marcus Allen. And shout out to Marcus Allen, man. Guest of the show, man. If you haven't checked out his interview, definitely do. And Deke, for the people that have been tuning in but they aren't subscribed, what are they doing? Deke, they got to subscribe, man. Hit the subscribe button. I just thought about that, Deke.
I like the drop in the middle of the podcast. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying, man? We're just trying to grow
a little bit.
Just trying to grow a little bit. You know what I mean? But yeah, what are you doing? You're enjoying it. You're watching the segment.
Sure.
Subscribe.
Yeah.
It's simple.